Well, hello, high school hockey fans. We're getting near the end of the season. It is tournament time. Yes, the state tournament is this week, and we're going to talk about that tonight on This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey. I'm Mike Hammett, along with Dan Bauer, Bill Berg, and Bill Berg Jr. We got some things we got to recap our players of the playoffs, and we'll talk about the state tournament. It's starting on Thursday, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, though. Right now, though, the Best Western Premier Park Hotel Players of the Playoffs, Division Two. And Bill Jr., you got this one.
Sure, I do. Division Two Premier Park Hotel Player of the Playoffs is McFarland's goalie, Steve Wong. In the regional final, not a very busy day for the number one seed, McFarland Spartans, I believe. He
Yes.
only had 8 saves in their 12-0 win over Stoughton. But in the sectional semifinal against Cedarburg, he had 31 saves and 1 goal against in their 2-1 win. And then in the sectional final, which went 5 overtimes, he had 57 saves and 1 goal against in their 2-1 win over Monona Grove. So for the 3 games of the playoffs, he had 0.54 goals against average and a 980 save percentage, including 2 1-goal games. So Steve Wong of McFarland is our Division Two Premier Park Hotel Player of the Week.
He was on his game on Saturday night when I was there. He had a rather busy night. Let's move on to the girls' games. Girls player of the playoffs. Dan Bauer, you have the young lady here who's our player of the playoffs.
Yes, for the girls Park Premier Hotel player of the playoffs is Amy Toole. She's a goaltender with Eau Claire area, and Eau Claire has kind of been on a magic carpet ride through the playoffs here with overtime games and thrillers every single night, and she's been a big part of that. In the net, she's won 2 of their 3 playoff games. She was in net for a 46 save win over Western Wisconsin, 4-3 win over Western Wisconsin. And then she was also in the sectional final this last Saturday, and that was a 26 save shutout over Black River Falls. So together, she has put together a 1.14 goals against average, 960 save percentage. And her win against Western Wisconsin was a 5 overtime game. So together with with Evie Pritzel, those two have kind of been the dynamic duo that have really led Eau Claire to the state tournament. So Amy Toole is the Best Western Premier Park Hotel player of the playoffs for the girls.
When you got a game that you're cutting it that close that you can't give up anything because the goaltender at the other end is kind of doing the same thing. She had to come up big, and she did in that Black River Falls game. Okay, let's move on to Division One boys player of the playoffs. Bill Bergler.
Okay, on the Division One for the boys, this is a rare occasion for us where we have a returning player of the week. But since this isn't the player of the week, it's the player of the playoffs, we allowed it. Connor Hillig, forward for the Brookfield Stars. In the regional final, 5-2 win over Oregon, he had a goal and 3 assists. In the sectional semifinal, a 6-3 win over KMMO, he had 3 goals and 2 assists. And in the sectional final, a 4-0 win over Arrowhead, he had a goal and an assist for. So 5 goals and 6 assists for Connor Hillig of Brookfield, our Division One player of the playoffs.
Okay, congratulations to all 3 of them on their achievements of This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey's player of the playoffs. Let's talk about that state tournament now. Division Two gets started on Thursday. And Junior, what do you got for matchups there on Thursday for
Thursday morning,
Division 2?
the number 1 seed Tomahawk Hatchets take on the number 4 seed McFarland Spartans at 9:30 in the morning, and the number 2 seed Amory Warriors take on the number 3 seed Somerset Spartans at 1:30 in the afternoon there on Thursday. For their part, Tomahawk recapping their sectional final. They beat Mosinee to come down to state 5-1 on Friday night at the Mosinee City Recreation Center. First period of that game was really good. Shots were 13-9 in favor of Tomahawk, and at the end of the first period, it was 2-1. Tomahawk got a goal at the 5-minute mark, a power play goal by Sawyer Hanna on an assist from Jet Riley and Braden Lamer. But Mosinee answered back just 30 seconds later. Elliot Yurkovsky scored on an assist from Tyler Bars to make it 1-1. And it stayed that way for about 10 minutes when Jonah Dickens got sprung on a breakaway. And when he's on a breakaway, nobody's going to catch him. He fought off a slash on his legs and managed to score on the breakaway to make it 2-1 as the period ended. And then the second period, it was a completely different hockey game where the shots in the first were 13-9. In the second period, Tomahawk outshot Mosinee 22-3. But it still took them almost 16 minutes to score. They scored 2 power play goals 40 seconds apart with just a couple minutes left in the period. Both of them assisted by nifty passing plays by Austin Lamer. The first, he passed to his brother Braden for the goal, and on the second, he passed to Jet Riley for the goal. And then the third period started to get kind of ugly. The teams traded 11 penalties. Again, Tomahawk outshot Mosinee 13-4 in the third period, and Austin fed Braden for yet another goal for Braden Lamer to make it 5-1. And that's where it ended. Mosinee senior goalie Aiden Karst, who's been starting in the playoffs for them since he was a freshman. I mean, his save percentage for the game was only .896, but he played a great game. Tomahawk was 3 for 4 on the power play in the first 2 periods of the game, and that really kind of sunk Mosinee.
MJ, you were at the McFarland game, weren't you?
Yeah, I just ran out to the car to grab my notes.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us how McFarland got here.
Well, McFarland, they ended up, boy, it was a long night for them. They had a 5 overtime winner over Monona Grove in a game that started out with, looking here, McFarland scored the first goal of the game, was scored by number 4, Bowden Wagner. Right circle pass, and he got a shot off from the slot and went 5-hole. About 3 minutes later, though, Monona Grove came back and tied that game up. Number 13 for Monona Grove, Stanley Payne, was able to get one in. His partner, 21, Jack Schiefelbein, won the faceoff back to him. He got a quick shot off, and that was a score after 1 period. No scoring after 2 periods. A couple penalties in the second, but nothing really going on. Third period, Monona Grove had a power play with minute 25 to start out the third period. They didn't have anything come out of it. Couple of good rushes, but nothing to come out of it. Shots were very, very minimal, 6-5 for both teams in the third period. So we went to overtime, and as you can guess, nothing happened really in the first, second, third overtime. McFarland had a face-off late in the zone. They took a timeout that didn't materialize. Fourth overtime, they had nothing going on, and then the fifth overtime, 56 or 58 seconds in, McFarland was able to get one past the goaltender Wyatt Godfrey, who played phenomenal for Monona Grove, and that was your 2-1 winner in 5 overtimes. Wyatt Godfrey and Steve Hoang, looking here, they're both junior goaltenders. They'll see each other again next year, but McFarland wins this battle here, go to state, and McFarland's making their first trip to state since 2000 when they were a co-op with Oregon. They went in 2000, and that's the last time they were there.
And Tomahawk, looking at the computer rankings, if you put much stock in the computers, looking at the combined D1, D2 rankings, Tomahawk is the second best team McFarland will have played this year when that puck drops. They're only the fourth team in the top 20 McFarland will have played this year. McFarland lost a 6-2 game to 18th ranked Wanakee. They lost a 7-1 game to third ranked Madison Edgewood. And they won a 3-2 game over 17th ranked Muskego, where Muskego outshot them pretty well, and Steve Huang kind of stole the game for them. Tomahawk, for their part in the computer rankings right now, is currently the highest school in D2, and in the combined rankings, they're 14th. So at 14th, they are the second best team McFarland will have seen this year. People who haven't watched Tomahawk this year will find them fairly interesting, unless they change things up for the state tournament. Tomahawk doesn't play, this is line 1, this is line 2, this is D pair 1, this is D pair 2. Tomahawk's first line is 5 guys. Tomahawk's second line is 5 guys. Unless the score gets out of hand somehow, the third line is not going to see the ice. And those 5 guys on the first line, Sawyer Hanna, Jet Riley, Jonah Dickens, Austin Lamer, and Braden Lamer, will be on the ice at the same time every time. And since Tomahawk has the last line change, that line will be matched up against McFarland's top line every time.
McFarland.
Tomahawk bets that their first line is better than yours and that their second line will stop you from scoring.
McFarland's gonna have their hands full of Tomahawk's offense. They've got plenty of it. McFarland doesn't seem to score a whole lot, as we could see through this game. They're a sectional final, but they they've got good goaltending, and good goaltending can take you a long way. So we'll see what happens there.
Tomahawk and McFarland seem to have different approaches to putting together a schedule. The previous Tomahawk coach saw that he had a really good group of guys coming up, and he started playing up with their non-conference games. 2 years ago, we saw them, go to that Nina holiday tournament, which is pretty much, top level Division I teams. They went back there again this year. They faced both of last year's Division II teams that got moved up. The two teams that met in the final. They played New Richmond and they played Fond du Lac Springs. They've tested themselves. So when it comes down to this state tournament, they're ready for any type of team they're going to play against.
Tomahawk, their biggest danger is going to be the same thing that so many Superior coaches have complained about over the years. Tomahawk is fast and they play hard. And if they run into a couple of Southern refs who call a less physical game, Tomahawk could find themselves in the box with regularity.
Well, we've discussed that many times. I mean, games from the north and games from the south, they're called 2 different ways.
Yeah, and then you know what? And it's not just a Wisconsin thing. It's the same in Minnesota. Games in northern Minnesota and games in southern Minnesota are called in different ways. Northern Minnesota is a more rough and tumble brand of hockey. But now we can move to the bottom half of the bracket and hear Burglar talk for a very long time, since he covered both of the teams coming into this one.
You are right, because we have Amory and Somerset playing for the second time in just a couple of weeks. They played for an epic championship game for the Middle Border Conference just a couple weeks ago that went, I think, 3 or 4 overtimes before Amory won that one. So it's listed on our site as a tie because it was just a regular season WIAA game. But Hayward, Amory got here by beating Hayward on Friday. When I talk about Hayward or Amory and Somerset, I'm going to talk about goaltending. Because for Amory, Carter Meyer is one of the finalists for our Division II goaltending award. Gavin Hand for Hayward. He's been he's had been nominated for Player of the Week several times. Where somebody else just had a fantastic week that we can beat him up, but he is no slouch as a goaltender himself. And the defense in front of him, in front of Gavin Hand, Hayward played just a fantastic defensive game. Everybody was blocking shots, and their defensemen were just selling out to keep the puck out of the slot. Amory kept trying to open guys up in front of the slot, and they'd get guys open in front of the slot, but they could not get the puck to them. Hayward was just they were diving if they had to. They were laying out. They were blocking. Go down to their knees to block it. They just did not let pucks get into the slot. And it was only a 1-1 game that had to go into a second overtime. The first goal was scored by Amory when there was a shot. There were actually two shots put on from Gavin Hand's left. He blocked the first one. The second one glanced off his chest and went and hit. He went. Yeah, the Doughton. Hit Doughton in the chest, and the puck bounced down to his feet, and he poked it into the net for the first goal of the game. And Hayward they managed to tie it up later. This was in the third period. There was no scoring in the first two periods. There was a Logan Doughton was the guy's name. And in the third, later in the period, there was a battle for a puck in the neutral zone, and it popped out, and Keegan Walsh from Hayward was the first guy to get to it, and he was behind the defenseman. He was over on the right side of the boards. So he fired a wrist shot from right around the face-off dot that just snuck in under the crossbar. And it was a 1-1 game, and it went into overtime. There was a bit of a scare in the overtime. Amory player got called for boarding, a 5-minute penalty about 3 minutes into the overtime. So it looked like he was 5 minutes in overtime, and at that point the tension in the building was high. Everybody was just on. All the Amory fans were sitting on the edge of they were on pins and needles, and the Hayward fans are all right. We got a chance now. Coach Matt Humple for Amory told his players, we've been a good penalty killing team all season. This is just another penalty. We can kill it. They killed the first 2.5 minutes of the 5. Hayward called a timeout. Rest their number 1 power play unit, give them another chance with fresh legs. Amory killed that second one, and then there's only a few seconds left, and that period wore off. They flooded the ice. The teams came back out, and Amory was able to score. Jack. I'm really not good with names. It's right up in there. The title. Logan Maxon. He was finally in front of the slot. He was finally able to get a pass. Got a pass from behind the net. Got a pass from behind the net, put it in, and that ended that game. again, both goaltenders had outstanding games. And Amory came out on top of that one. That was Friday night. Then on Saturday, we went to Somerset and River Falls. Again, quality goaltending. Um, River Falls has Carson Belisle, who's one of our award finalists. River Falls had Daniel Lynn, who has been, a top. He's been nominated as a Player of the Week this year and several times last year too. He's a very high quality goaltender for River Falls. In this game, River Falls came out uh, flying. They threw everything they had at Somerset early. Their forwards were fast. They were getting behind the Somerset defensemen. Their defensemen were crashing the puck. Somerset was kind of back on their heels a little bit. They took a couple of penalties just to kind of try to slow um, River Falls down. And if it hadn't have been for Carson Belisle, uh, this game may have been over in the first period. I mean, they put a lot of pressure on him in that period. Belisle just came through time after time, point blank shots. He was stopping everything. Well, until there was one. They did score in the first period. Cal Usgard did one of those. Well, that wasn't even the goal. A shot pass to the back door, and Breeze directed it, but that actually missed. The Wildcats finally got on. They got behind the defense again, and yeah, they got behind the defense 2-0. Belisle stopped two shots from McPherson, and the second rebound went across the street to Jackson Flanagan, and he put that in for a goal. Somerset got that goal back later off a face-off face-off win in the River Falls zone. Face-off came back to Broden Thiel, who took a shot from the point. Marshall Houcom was in front of the net, and he got a stick on it and deflected it up and over Wildcat goalie Daniel Lynn. So it was tied 1-1, even though River Falls outshot Amory 19-7 in that first period. Yeah, over the course of the game, as they got deeper, River Falls got back to playing. I think they primarily just two lines, whereas Somerset kept rolling three lines. And even after two periods, River Falls was still out shooting Somerset 34-15 total. But the three lines eventually got them back in it. Somerset outshot River Falls 8-7 in the third period, and the teams traded goals in that third period. And they went to overtime. And Somerset outshot. No, that's a different game. Never mind. Man, I got too many tabs open here. Yeah, Somerset outshot River Falls 4-0 in that overtime, and finally got the game winner from Wyatt Olson. To end that one. And that's sort of too many tabs open, burglar switching back and forth, not knowing what he's talking about. Summary of that game. So now the two teams will play again. I actually talked to Dan Gilkerson after the game. I said, is there do you think there's any way that, well, we know Tomahawk's going to be the number 1 seed. Do you think McFarland has any chance of not being the number 4 seed? So you're just going to drive all that far just to play Amory again? And he said, well, if we have to play Amory again, we'll play Amory again.
In my, if you remember my text message, I believed that McFarland would be the 3 and Somerset would be the 4.
Yeah, but you were wrong
I was wrong.
for the first time.
Coaches didn't agree with me, which is, their mistake. Everybody makes their.
Yeah, so who's like I said, these two teams played a couple of weeks ago and it went to like 3 or 4 overtimes. And Amory came out on top. Somerset had like a 2-1 advantage in shots in that game. Again, both teams have very good goalies, Carter Meyer and Carson Belisle. So it's hard to score on either one of them, and they both play good defense. So I would not bet any money on this game either way.
All right, let's move on to the girls, which is Thursday evening. The Bay Area Ice Bears, Cap City Cougars open that one off at 4:30, and the Central Wisconsin Storm and Eau Claire Area Stars follow at 7:30. Dan, I believe you were at the Bay Area sectional final.
Yeah, I was over taking that one in over at the Champions Center, really beautiful building over in Appleton. Great venue for the sections, and they had the boys and the girls back to back in there, which I think is really, really nice when they do that. Gets a lot of people in there. So, yeah, the Bay Area, obviously, the team that's been at the top of the heap in the girls from the very beginning this year. They've stayed there the entire time. 21 game winning streak. They've just been so dominant throughout the entire season, and they drew the Fond du Lac Warbirds, who has also had a very nice season, not quite as nice as Bay Area. So the two teams had played prior to that game, and Bay Area had won, or actually the two teams had played 3 times before during the regular season. Bay Area won all 3 of them. So Fond du Lac was hoping that actually the 4th time would be the charm. So the game opened up. It was pretty back and forth. Bay Area carried most of the play, but not a lot of really great scoring chances early in the period, first period. And then the Fond du Lac, the most penalized girls team in the state, took a penalty about a third of the way through the first period, and that's when you kind of got your first look at Kennedy Coleman. She had 2 or 3 really big saves during that power play, and it kept the game scoreless. And then your mind kind of was like, yeah, maybe she can steal this game, because she definitely has that kind of potential and ability. So they got through the first period scoreless. Bay Area outshot them 9-0. And then, as I've seen Bay Area do so many times this year, just kind of a going through the motions almost first period, then come out in the second period and just punch you in the mouth. And that's what they did. Scored 2 goals in the first 2.5 minutes. Rachel Beek picked up a puck, a clearing pass that went off a skate, landed on her stick, just dived below the dot, came in at a bad angle and beat Coleman through the 5-hole. Probably a goal that she would have liked to have had back. And then 2 minutes, or at 2:34, the period, Faye Brunke, who is just knows how to score goals, got one got a redirect in front of the net, something that their head coach had talked about. Their defenseman looking for empty sticks and trying to find ways to deflect the puck past Coleman, knowing how tough it was going to be to beat her. And then they scored another deflection, a power play goal with about 6 minutes left in the second period. Emily Bill with really nice hand-eye coordination, redirected one from about the hash marks past Coleman. It was 3-0. Fond du Lac did get a goal in the third. Sidria Retzloff scored coming down the left wing to make it 3-1. But that was as close as it got. Bay Area outshot them for the game 28-6. I think the Fond du Lac got their first shot on goal at about the 10-minute mark in the second period when they were on a power play. So Bay Area, I think we all expected them to get there, and they're there.
Then MJ, you were at the other half of that, the Cap City Cougars in their sectional final.
Most certainly was Cap City and Beaver Dam playing for the third time this year. And Beaver Dam had won the first two. So hard to beat a team three times in a year. Burglar agrees with me sometimes about that, but on this night it was Cap City who got out to a 3-0 lead quick in this game. They got 3 goals. They got 2 in the first and 1 in the second. And then all of a sudden, Beaver Dam got 2 power plays. They got a 5-on-3. They scored on that. The 5-on-4. They scored on that. And it was a 3-2 game going into the third period. Beaver Dam was able to tie the game at 3 and had a power play late in the game. And ended up the puck got behind Beaver Dam, and one of the girls from Cap City took off, and she was able to get around the goaltender and put it in the net. And that came down. There was exactly 2 minutes left, so Cap City still had to kill off more penalties, and they were able to. Beaver Dam pulled the goalie for the extra attacker. He had a couple whacks at it late in the game, but wasn't going to go in, and Beaver Dam falls to Cap City 4-3. Cap City's goaltender played phenomenal. I thought she played a very strong game. Cap City probably took a few more penalties than they probably would like to, but they showed at times they're able to score when they need to, and they were able to win this game. They're going in with a 13-12 record, not a sparkling record, but still they are there, and they get the first game with the Bay Area Ice Bears.
It's better than Superior's record in 2015. And they won the whole thing.
Yeah. All right, who's coming in on the other side of the girls' bracket?
Oh, I think that's me. The Central Wisconsin Storm and the Eau Claire Area Stars face off in the second girls' game. I was at the Storm sectional final against Hayward in Menominee. It took them a while to get that one rescheduled once they decided they didn't want to play in Superior. But eventually they settled on Menominee, which I didn't even think was an option because it's not in the section. But apparently that's not a rule. The Storm, offensively, 5-on-5. Hayward had one good scoring chance this whole game. The Storm just kind of controlled the puck. Hard work and effort for most of the game. Hayward had real trouble with breakout passes, sending pucks up the ice to nobody there. The Storm defense would just hold it in. Shots in the first period were 13-5 in favor of the Storm. Nobody scored in that first period. The best scoring opportunity in the first period was actually Hayward's. It was Reese Sheehan, who everybody's heard of by now. She managed to pick the puck up in the neutral zone and just fly down the left side of the ice. She couldn't quite get around the Storm defenseman that was there, but she got around enough to cut in hard towards the net. She fired it by to the net past goalie Cami Floor, and it hit the crossbar and banked back out on the other side. Sheehan thought it went in. She thought it went in the top of the net and came out. But the angle it bounced out doesn't make that look like it was possible. On the other hand, if it hit the crossbar, it didn't make a noise, which I don't know that I've seen that many times. But no goal there at the end of the one period, 0-0, shots 13-5 for the Storm. It was more of the same in the second. The Storm outshot Hayward 11-7, so they narrowed it slightly. Jaden Yurkowski got the Storm on the board at the 6:52 mark. She took a feed wide open in the slot from Gabby Huser, and one-timed it into the glove side corner just inside the pipe to make it 1-0 for the Storm. Hayward would answer back, finally showing some life on offense on the power play at the 14:46 mark. Reese Duncan got the puck down low in the crease area and put it in on the power play to make it a tie game. And then the third period was kind of a slog in this one. After the way the first two periods went, the teams combined for 9 shots in the third period, just 5 for the Storm and 4 for the Hurricanes, as it looked like both teams were kind of clamping down on defense and playing not to lose rather than trying to go out there and win. The Storm did at one point in the period take 2 penalties 9 seconds apart. So Hayward had a 1 minute and 51 second 5-on-3 power play, but they did not manage to score on that attempt. And then with time winding down at the end of the third period, Hayward took a penalty of their own. So when overtime started, the Storm had a power play. On that power play, Ava Rody fed Sophie Bolin. Bolin put the puck in on net, and 2 rebounds later, Gabby Heiser had the game-winning goal at 1:02 of the overtime. So that's how the Storm got to Madison. Burglar, Eau Claire area. You're on mute.
As Dan alluded to during the player of the week or player of the playoffs, Eau Claire area got here on the backs of their goaltenders. In this game, we had Amy Toole, our girls player of the playoffs, in net, and she had a 26 save shutout. In the other net for Black River Falls, we had Alexa Moore, who's one of our award finalists for goaltenders. So this was again, I mean, Alexa Moore had Amy Toole had a 930 save percentage during the regular season, and Alexa Moore was a finalist for our awards. So this was a real defensive battle, and not just the goalies, but each team played very solid defense. It was hard to penetrate the other team's defense and get anything at all into the slot or close to the goaltenders. There were a couple of chances early on, but nothing really exciting until a penalty. There was a penalty on Black River Falls. So the Stars were able to get their penalty unit going. They got the puck into the zone, kind of collapsed, worked the puck around, and closer and closer, and they collapsed to like everybody was in front of the net, and then Evelyn Kohler took a shot from kind of high in the slot, and there were so many bodies in front of the net. I'm sure that Alexa Moore never saw that puck, and that was the only scoring of the game. There were a couple of chances later that the shots were pretty even, but it was such a tight defensive battle that there weren't that many real good scoring opportunities in the game. Eau Claire had an opportunity in the third period to extend their lead. They had a minute and 35 worth of 5-on-3 power play. But Black River Falls just did a nice job of, getting in the way, getting the puck and icing it. And they killed that. And from then on, it was just, defense.
So what do you think, Dan, for the Storm and the Stars?
They met twice during the year. Really interesting because the first time they met, Central Wisconsin won 8-1. The shots were 43-19. The second time they met, the first time they met was right before Christmas. Second time they met, the Storm won 2-1. Shots were exactly the same, 43-19. The first game, Pritzl played when they scored 8 goals. In the second game, Tool played when they scored 2. So I'm guessing Tool's going to get the nod down in Madison, and she certainly has been red hot for them. I mean, you look at every metric in this game, and it tells you that the Storm is going to win this game. And the only thing that you look at that stands out is, oh, geez, they only beat them 2-1 that one game. So, I mean, overconfidence. I don't know if you can be overconfident enough, but I think everyone's kind of sold Eau Claire out all year and kind of gave up on them. I liked them a lot early from the beginning of the year just because they have 11 seniors, which is a pretty big senior class nowadays. And I thought that those kids would rise up and um, be leaders. Addison Grulke's, I think, scored the game tying goal in both of the games that they went to 3 overtimes and 5 overtimes. So she definitely kind of took it upon herself to extend their season. But yeah, the Storm, I mean, they play hard. They come at you. They're pretty relentless. And they just know how to win. They've been there 16th trip, I believe, to the state tournament. So everything tells you that that will be a Storm win. But as we all know, goaltenders in the state tournament have stolen some games in the past.
Oh, yeah.
And the other,
Goaltending was the difference in the girls' championship game last year.
yeah, yep. And the other side of the bracket looks like probably even a worse mismatch when you look at where the two teams are ranked. Bay Area is ranked number 1, and in the ratings, Cap City is 16th. Cap City played the 25th best schedule or the third worst, however you want to look at that. So they have not played a lot of real strong competition throughout the year. And Bay Area has just been absolutely dominant. They've 26 games. They've given up 18 goals in 26 games, which is phenomenal. And so, I mean, again, that one does not look like it will be close, but Sophie Martinelli for Cap City is definitely, again, one of those goaltenders that can have a big game. And so, as they say on paper, it might not look good, but they got to show up and play.
All right. Moving on to D1. The 4 of us covered 9 sectional finals. The 3 that we missed are all teams that are D1 in the state tournament. So none of us was at the Brookfield Arrowhead sectional final. Brookfield is the 1 seed, or the Edgewood.
But to our credit, we had 2 stories on it on the
Yes, we did.
site.
2 contributors submitted stories for that game.
Right.
We were not at
We recruited one to cover the game when, as soon as the playoff brackets were set, we recruited one because we knew we couldn't get to that one. And then Brookfield has some guys that do their own. So we had 2.
Yep, and we were not at the Verona versus Edgewood game. So just to quickly recap those 2, Brookfield beat Arrowhead in their sectional final 4-0. Parker Dysart and Connor Hillig scored in the first period for Brookfield. Archer Hillig added a goal in the second, and then Jack Templeton put in an empty netter in the third to make that one 4-0. Brookfield outshot Arrowhead 36-24 in that 1 versus 2 matchup. And then in the other one, Edgewood beat Verona 6-0. Shots in the game were actually 31 apiece. But Edgewood got the better of the scoring opportunities on their shots. Hudson Kinsler got the first goal. Owen Barnett made it 2-0. Matt Richter, who we had a story on our site just a couple weeks ago, made it 3. Dylan Lenz got 4 and 5, and then Owen Porter added number 6 in the second period. No scoring in the third period, and that was a pretty clean game on the penalty sheet. Only 3 penalties for or two penalties for Edgewood, 4 for Verona. So not a bad game penalty wise, even though it got out of hand on the scoreboard. So that's the top of the bracket. What do you think about this one? Brookfield obviously has been ranked second pretty much all season. And now that Spash is out, Brookfield is the de facto favorite on the boys' side. But the computers absolutely love Madison Edgewood. They have them right
But
behind Brookfield.
you say Brookfield is the the quintessential favorite at this point. Man, please do not forget or snooze on Notre Dame Academy. They're looking for back-to-back state championships.
Well, we'll
I
get
mean,
to that. We'll get to
how
them
can
in
you
a little
snooze
bit.
on
We're
that?
talking about the other
Okay.
half now.
But Edgewood's played well the second half of the year. They've been pretty steady, and even in the playoffs they look pretty good. And they'll be a good matchup for Brookfield.
Well, Brookfield was there last year. Came pretty close and really didn't lose a whole lot. Their duo of Connor Hillig and Cooper Simon, uh, they can put the puck in the net, and they do it a lot.
Edgewood's been there too, but Edgewood usually gets the tougher draw. I mean, but maybe this time's the time to get through. They've looked pretty good in the sectionals, and now it's time to play on the big ice and see what happens against a good Brookfield team.
And then moving to the bottom half of the bracket, the Wausau West Warriors. I was at their 2 previous playoff games, but I was not at their sectional final against Eau Claire Memorial that they won 3-1. The big difference for the Warriors in this one is that they decided to play with the lead at some point, which is not something they did much of against Superior or New Richmond in their 2 previous games. In the regional final against Superior, Wausau West never actually led the game. They won it in the sudden death overtime period after being tied or behind the whole game. And then against New Richmond, they had a lead for about 6 minutes in the first period, and then otherwise they were tied or behind the whole game, and then won it with 30 seconds left. So they played with a lead against Eau Claire Memorial, 2 goals in the second period, Chase Crass and Hendricks Damro. And then just 21 seconds into the third period, Cooper Dupuis scored, and that made it 3-0. And then Eau Claire got one back a couple minutes later. But Wausau West played a really nice game. Goalie Julian Scalcucci stopped 36 of 37 in that sectional final against Eau Claire Memorial. And then going on to the other side, Notre Dame Academy, Dan was actually at that one.
Yeah, that was the second half of the doubleheader at the Champions Center, and great crowd there. I mean, they were standing room 3-4 deep at the top of the bleachers all the way around the rink. So great crowd. The Neenah High School, Menasha Hortonville all had student section all dressed in white. They were very active throughout the game. It was a really good game. Notre Dame came out and my son was there. We were watching the game together, and 30 seconds in, literally 30 seconds into the first period, there was a face-off, and Notre Dame had already had 4 shots on goal. He looked at me. He's like, "That's not a very good start for Neenah." I was like, "Yeah, not really." But it did settle down a little bit. Neenah did settle down a little bit after that. They ended up with a scoreless first period. Notre Dame did outshoot them 11-5 in that first period. And then the second period, things got a little bit more exciting. Trip Lewski, I'm not sure about that. I apologize if I butchered that. For Notre Dame, picked up a puck at the top of the circles, the right circle, walked his way all the way across. One of the D went down to try to block a shot, stepped around them, and then just fired the puck past Owen Debert, and they had a 1-0 lead. The Neenah got the game tied. Calvin Zinda shot from the point. Great screen in front for him, and the game was tied at 1-1. And Notre Dame made it 2-1 on a power play goal. Ian Aitken knocked in a puck from the side of the net after a shot from the point. And then Debert had a couple really nice saves, a diving save late in the period with his paddle to come across to keep a puck out to keep the score at 2-1. Third period, the Rockets wasted no time coming out. They must have had a good between periods speech. They scored 16 seconds into the period, and that was another redirect by Clay Lobs from Ty Lobs, who had shot that one from the point, and we were tied at 2-2 in the third period. So it's great game, exciting. Everyone's on the edge of their seats. And then with 10:16 to play, Carter Simonson got dragged down by Dominic Mater as he was going down the right wing. Wasn't sure it was going to be a penalty shot, but they put the officials put their arms up immediately, called the penalty shot, and Simonson took the penalty shot, came in really wide, like all the way down the left side, like down the dot line, and then came all the way across. But he could not get the puck in the net, and he was stopped by now I'm lost on the goalie here. 1 second. Anton Wittes made a really great save to stretched out as he tried to go from post to post and tried to beat him to the far side. He stretched out and was able to make the stop. And then kind of the irony of how sometimes this game can be really cruel. So Simonson had the chance to win it for his team, and then he ends up getting called for a penalty at 13:07, goes to the penalty box, and Notre Dame scores to go up 3-2. Nathan Ante with just a bullet of a shot from the point again on the power play through a lot of traffic, and that was put Notre Dame with 2:52 to play, and they got an empty net goal after that. It was a really fun game to watch. Watching Calvin Zinda and watching Nathan Ante, the two defensemen go at it from each side of the ice. I mean, two of the best defensemen I've seen play all year. Was really fun. Zinda took a shot late in the game, right before they scored to go up 3-2 on that power play. He went down in front of a slap shot and took it off his shoulder, and he came back out late in the last minute of the game, but he could barely use his arm. I'm not sure why he was even out there, but then he was trying to get it out. But in the end, Notre Dame moved on 4-2. And yeah, I kind of agree with MJ. I would not sleep on this team. I thought they looked really good. Nina found out after their West Bend game that they were going to be without their leading goal scorer, Mark Sutton, 35 goals on the year. He did not play. And Coach Jeff Lindeman offered no excuses. He said, it's part of the game, next man up. And, we just didn't get it done. But it was a very, very good game, very exciting game to watch. A lot of fun.
Yeah, although we weren't none of us were at the Wausau West Eau Claire Memorial game. Super contributor Matt Carey was there, and he filed a story for us, and his wife Lisa took pictures and put them on there. And one thing I want to note on this story is the last sentence in his write-up is a quote from Coach Brian Brandt. When you looked at us at the beginning of the season, nobody outside of our locker room would have thought we would be here. And I think that they started the year 3-3 with losses to Eau Claire Memorial, University School, and Stevens Point. And I think at that time, I don't know, I'm not going to say we wrote them off, but Bill, you could probably look at your top 6 rankings, and I think they fell out of the top six at that point and did not get back in until very late in the season.
No, and talking to Coach Brandt earlier this year, he says, you're never happy with a loss, but their loss to Springs in um at the Cornerstone Community Center at the Notre Dame Academy Showcase over the holiday break really is what triggered their turnaround. He said they had a film session the next morning before they played Notre Dame and broke down just everything that they were doing wrong. And the boys really took it to heart, and they shocked a lot of people on December 28th when they beat Notre Dame 2-1. And they followed that up 7-1 win over Verona, 3-0 win over Eau Claire Memorial, 5-4 over Middleton, 5-0 over Chippewa Falls. Still couldn't beat Point, but then 6-4 over New Richmond. So they turned it around at that point and really, really kind of came together. And they've played really well the last 3 games of the playoffs here. It was a lot more fun to watch than their game against University School that I watched earlier this season.
The thing is, guys, is you talk about, people were writing them off. This sectional they go through. I mean, we talk about it so much about how hard it is, but man, was anybody seeing this though? Did you figure that Spash would go down in the regionals? I mean, I didn't.
No, they were
It
24-0.
opened the door for a lot of teams.
They were 24-0 and had beaten every ranked team in the state. So, no, that was a bit of a surprise, but it did open the door for West because West's 2 games against Spash were bad. I think Coach Brand will tell you that their 2 games against Spash were bad. If Spash was in that bracket, um,
Well, their first one was only a 4-3 loss.
I saw. Yeah, the second one was bad. The first one was less bad. It was not bad. The second one was bad. The second one was 7-1.
And also, when you look at that sectional, also, they got Hudson was eliminated by Eau Claire Memorial, and Wausau West and Eau Claire Memorial both very familiar with each other. So
They play each other twice a year every year.
yeah,
They might as well be conference opponents at this point.
right.
Speaking of, do you guys notice the thing in the state tournament this year that has not happened since 1987?
No.
Of the 8 teams that currently constitute the Big Rivers Conference, Chippewa Falls, Eau Claire Memorial, Eau Claire North, Hudson, Menominee, New Richmond, Rice Lake, and River Falls, at least one has gone to the state tournament every year since 1987 until this year.
Oh,
I mean, there are years that I think there's a couple 3s in there once it switched to 2 divisions. Last year there were 3 Big Rivers Conference teams in the state tournament. New Richmond and River Falls were in D2 and Chippewa Falls was in D1. But yeah, since 1987, the 8 teams that currently constitute the Big Rivers, one of them has been in the state tournament every year.
wow, amazing.
That was one of those things
That's
you read on
pretty
Twitter
amazing.
that you trust but verify. So I looked at it and I'm like, that sounds really good. So I went to the WIAA's archive and looked at the all-time state appearances, and I grabbed those teams and put all the numbers or all the years that they appeared into an Excel sheet and sorted it, and there were no gaps from 1988 to 2024.
Wow. A lot of those years, since 2000 on, how many of those have been Eau Claire Memorial? I mean, it's been a lot of them. They even have
Well,
a
I can
couple
tell
of-
you just because I had the stats up that Hudson has been the most successful. Hudson's all-time record at the state tournament is 20-8.
Wow.
Eau Claire Memorials is 14-17. I mean, most teams that have a state tournament record on the WIA site have more losses than they do wins if they've been to the tournament more than once. But Hudson has got a state tournament record over the years of 20-8.
How many state titles they won? Is it 4?
I don't have that sheet up in front of me.
Okay. Anyways, well, let's move on. We got to talk about some awards here. We got some awards. Our WIPH awards we're going to be handing out.
Yes, it'll be different this year after A lot of last minute scrambling.
Okay.
Bill's got all the details.
So the girls' awards will be presented Wednesday night at the girls' state tournament and all-state banquet as part of those festivities. So that one will not be open to the public. It'll be open to the nominees and their families. But they will be presented there at the girls' all-state banquet and all state tournament and all-state banquet. And the boys' awards will be presented at the Marriott at 8 o'clock on Thursday, down the hall from where the boys' state tournament banquet is being held. So the boys' banquet goes from 6 to 8. When that ends, we have a room down the hall where we will do the 7 boys' awards. That'll be Thursday during the girls' state tournament session.
Mark your calendars. Make sure you got your locations correct, and we will we'll be handing them out. Should be a lot of fun. Okay, guys, anything else you want to touch on tonight?
I got one more thing to say about my road trip over the weekend. Hats off to the fine folks at the Amory Ice Arena and the Somerset Ice Arena for taking care of this hobbled old man. They made it really easy for me to cover those games, and I appreciate it thoroughly. And thank you, both groups, coaches Matt Hummel and Dan Gilkerson, and all the people that work at so hard at those ranks. I appreciate everything they did for me last weekend.
What is it about Amory and Somerset? How many miles, say about 15, 20 miles away from each other?
It's a 33-minute drive.
Okay,
You got to go through
Yeah.
New Richmond.
right. Okay. All right. Well, it's nice that they took care of Burglar. He's, like you said, a hobbled old man. Well, he'll hobble his way down to the state tournament, I bet. So you can count on seeing him there. So anything else, guys?
No, sir.
No? Okay. Well, for the Berg family, Dan Bauer, I'm Mike Hammett. We'll see you down at the state tournament this week on This Week in Wisconsin Prep Hockey.